Hello, Music Multiverse listeners. Welcome to Beyond Your Radio. We welcome in our first panelist favorite show of 2025. And wow, we got the crew all here this tonight. It's the trickiest. There's nowhere you can hide in the audio environment for these musicians. It's complete exposure. It's stripped down. You can produce, but you got to be honest. The musicians have to be all in and they got to be freaking really good. There's no subwoofers, no sonics, no fuzz that you can hide behind. This is acoustic albums, our favorites of all time. I'll start by saying let's just throw out classical because we could go on and on and on. Separate category all by itself. After that, I'm going to let you go wherever you may go. But let's introduce the panel tonight. Joining me on the panel tonight, he's been on Highway 61, and it's as long as Dylan's song. Jeff Crichton. If there's banjo and flute and toe tambourine, she's in the mosh pit for sure. Damn, Deb Armitage Hicks Maloney. And what is that? We got a special guest there? It's from someone from the dark. Was she riding shotgun?
Yep.
Susie Q. She's acoustically loaded and ready to go.
Okay.
It's not Ray LaMontagne. No, it's not Ray Charles. It's Ray Geska. Ray.
Yay.
Got his Buffalo Bills shirt on.
Go Bills.
And he listened to it 3 or 4 times, the double live album, Acoustic, Megadeth. He is number 1 pick. Jeff Young. He doesn't appreciate my sarcasm. Okay. I don't really appreciate my
I don't know how to respond.
I wouldn't either. How is everyone tonight? Ready for this?
Yes.
We are ready.
All right. We're going to go bottom up. So for me, the bottom is Jeff, then it goes Sue, then it goes Deb, then Ray, then Jeff. All right. So Mr. Young, what is your number 5 acoustic album of all time?
Well, I picked 4 and I was going to copy one of yours.
Oh.
Well, yours, the group yours, not yours. I'm going to whoever's best, I'll take that. But I'm going to go as I'm going to pick the Alice in Chains MTV Unplugged 1996. Good one. So what's funny about the MTV Unplugged ones, whether it be them or Ron or whoever, the albums are good for what they are, but it almost pays off to watch it visually because in some of the cases, there's some interaction between the songs, depending on how organized or polished they were. And it's just, sometimes I find it interesting. But a lot of the main songs that you'd expect from Alice in Chains at that time. And I don't know, that was done. It was done well. And it's just good.
Okay. No problem there. I like that one. I thought watching it on MTV, great. I have the album. I don't think it was recorded well from there. It has.
I think that's the type of thing you want to find the remastered version of.
Yeah. All right. Susie Q across down the road a ways.
All right. So the first one I'm gonna do is The King of the Delta Blues Singers, Volume 2, 1970. I believe originally recorded in 1936. And the way it seems to be, it's just come out. Did I steal something? Anyway, it's come out like several different times on several different albums, but I just find him to be intriguing, mysterious, and his story is so interesting aside from the music aspect. But this was recorded in a makeshift studio in a San Antonio hotel, and I was in San Antonio this past year, so I kind of feel connected. But yeah, just really good. Obviously traditional classic blues. He was like an original and influencer, and it's an awesome blues album.
I love your choice.
This is Robert Johnson, I'm assuming.
That's what. Oh, did I not say it? Yes,
No.
Robert Johnson.
You don't even need to name his name.
Right.
He is the king.
Blues. I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just for edification sense, he was influenced by Blind Willie Johnson.
Mhm.
Bottleneck slide guitar. Blind Willie Johnson had an interesting voice. He very raspy and gospel, doom. It's
Yeah.
just he wanted you to be saved, and
Yeah.
you will repent and say totally unique. But yeah, great pick, Deb.
Well, my number 5, it's probably it. I don't think it met very good critical acclaim or anything, but it was something that was different for me. Um, it was put out by an artist that was very, very popular at the time, and outside of the hits that he had, I wasn't really into listening to all of his albums, but I like Acoustic, so it's Springsteen's Nebraska. I just grew to love the gentleness of the album. I felt it was a whole different tone that he was exhibiting. It was a departure from his prior albums, which like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of his entire albums start to finish, just maybe the songs that were on the radio. He wasn't my thing, but Nebraska, 1982.
Me too.
Nice pick.
It's a good pick. It's a good pick.
Thank you.
I didn't know about that album until the Cowboy Junkies covered Mr. State Trooper.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
yeah, I
Yeah,
kind
well,
of
you're-
lost
you're-
touch with Springsteen with that album too, because that would have been on the heels of The River, I believe,
Yeah,
Mhm.
which
It
was
was.
a double
It
album.
was.
It was like my first real big introduction to Bruce. Like his
Mhm.
earlier stuff, I was still too young to really know it, but The River
Mhm.
kind of put it over the top. And then
Yeah.
Nebraska, I'm like, what is this?
I know.
Because it's like there were no hits on the album,
Right.
and years later, I like his version, Atlantic City, and then whatever
Yeah.
other stuff down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, State Trooper is a good call on that one.
I like when artists do something just for themselves, and that's what he was doing. And
Which isn't it weird?
Yeah.
Like, doesn't that come after another like song? Like, isn't there like Highway Patrolman like in front of that? Like right in front of that, there's like two right in a row. They're like officer, like
yeah, I think so.
It sounds familiar.
He must have been in trouble.
So highway patrolman and then state trooper and then used cars because that's what you're
Mhm.
driving after you're impounded. Right? Yeah. And then you go to the bar because it's open all night. And then you have to go back to your father's house and he'll give you a reason to believe. Hey, that worked out, didn't it? I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
All right, go ahead. Ray.
All right. So I'm gonna go with this. So we talked a little bit about live albums, and I do have somewhat of a live feel in here, because like iPad Jeff had said, there's just something to it with some of these things. Once you have that live feel, and the acoustic just gives it a whole different feel. So with all the time this guy spent behind bars, maybe early in his career he might have spent some time individually behind bars, but with the time he spent there as an artist, you would have thought he was a prisoner, an inmate, but he certainly was not. But he recorded a couple of live albums inside maximum security prisons. His first was at Folsom Prison, and on this one he went to San Quentin and absolutely killed it. Such tracks as Ring of Fire, I Walk the Line, Starkville City Jail, among some others. And then, of course, he stole the show with his version, which has become legend, of A Boy Named Sue. Talking about Johnny Cash.
Man in Black.
Yes.
Quentin.
The Man in Black.
Nice.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's a great
Yeah.
one.
It has to be
I
mentioned.
would have picked it
It's-
if I remembered.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a good one.
great pick. Mr. Crichton.
So just speaking of Johnny Cash, not that I'm choosing him, but right now, but in my honorable mentions is a record he did the trilogy with Rick Rubin, the American recordings.
Yeah.
That first album is incredible.
Yeah.
And it's a must listen. That would be an honorable mention. But my number five.
I'm really thinking one of these shows is going to be just all about Rick Rubin.
Oh,
Just
yeah, could be.
that-
Yeah. So my number 5. It's the second album he recorded, produced by Peter Asher, who discovered him. It's a classic record, released almost 55 years ago. Almost. Another week away.
Wow.
That would be Sweet Baby James by James Taylor.
James Taylor.
Um,
I thought he'd be on the list for somebody.
And everybody's heard that album. You know, the title track, Fire and Rain, Steamroller Blues, Country Road, and of course, Fire and Rain. You know, James, I mean, he could be in the top 10 of all, maybe top 5 of all acoustic recording artists ever. Right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right. Yeah.
There wouldn't be an argument there. Just
That's my number 5.
how many times have you seen him live?
Oh, probably 10,
Okay.
12. Last time I saw him was with Ray.
Yeah, it was last summer.
Yeah,
Nice. Where was it?
Darian.
Darian? How was that? Because that's a different kind of.
He was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And he at the end of his first set, people that we were like way in the back, but people that were in the front was giving him albums and he was signing them before the break, which
Yeah,
is
it
kind
took
of
like 10
cool. It's
minutes.
like, you don't see an iconic artist like that do that.
That's
So,
cool. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
then,
a real
you know,
nice,
they're-
intimate show. It was really nice.
He's not certainly as iconic, but I have seen Sammy Hagar get that.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Sammy's okay too. We like him too.
I would do
He's
that.
iconic.
Jeff's iPad.
I would sign napkins. Okay, Kleenex. Never mind. All right, so my number 5, February 17th of 2006, debuted at number 1 on the Irish album charts.
Of course it did.
I mean, it's acoustic, but it is in Irish. Not even close. This is Rodrigo y Gabriela. Their first album, Rodrigo y Gabriela. This is flamenco guitar. This is Tay Tate. She is one of the best in the world at it.
Oh,
He's quite the virtuoso himself. He likes to play electric, don't get me wrong. On this album, they cover Stairway to Heaven. They also cover Metallica's Orion.
Oh,
So if you want to go from one extreme to the other, I guess that's a damn good way to do it. Just remarkable. It finally opened my ears to something that I had never really experienced. Don't get me wrong. There's somebody else coming up who has a pretty good, grasp of that as well. But that's my number 5 from Mexico, Rodrigo y Gabriela.
That's the acoustic cover
cool.
bands.
Yeah. Jeff Young, back to you.
I'm gonna go with the 5-man acoustic jam, Tesla 1990, which was in Philadelphia. And it hit number 2 in the Billboard US, but I had obviously some songs from Great Radio Controversy. They had some covers from the Stones and Creedence Clearwater Revival, and they did one of the songs from the Beatles. We can work it out, but again, it's just good. I mean, they're good enough musicians that they don't, even though they're electric guitar or rock band. I mean, you can everything sounds great, whether it's electric guitar or not. I mean, it all sounds really good, and I thought it was cool that they mixed in some covers.
It started to change that sound. They would, people would say they're gonna, do their usual, but now all these bands started to do the same thing. They had an acoustic set in the middle, right? It just became something.
The first time I saw Tesla was in Buffalo at what used to be Howdy's.
Yep.
And they played an
Oh, wow.
acoustic concert, and they did later bring out a couple of electric guitars, but it was just really good.
Awesome. Susie Q.
Okay, well, there's no build up to this one, and everyone's probably tired of me talking about them, but I went with Skin and Bones, 2006, the Foo Fighters. And
the
yeah,
Foos.
it has notable songs on it that everybody loves, and they just did them acoustically, and they did them really well, and
Cool.
it's an enjoyable record if you enjoy the Foo Fighters. And if you haven't heard them acoustically, here's an opportunity.
I'm gonna
I'm
check
just-
it out. So
You
I'm
should
just
do
glad
it.
it's not the Smashing Pumpkins.
I often play acoustic tunes during live shows too.
Yeah. I mean,
I like
Chrissy's
their
got-
acoustic version of Tiny Dancer. Ever hear that one live?
Yeah,
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Foo Fighters,
That's
or at least Dave
interesting.
Grohl. Yeah,
Oh, I'm
that's
just
pretty cool.
glad it was Tiny Dancer, not Private Dancer, because
Yeah, he does like a little storytelling in it, how he sets it up, and it's pretty
Cool.
cool. You look that one up if
I
you
am
can.
definitely writing that one
Yeah.
down.
Hmm,
All right.
sorry.
Sue, I'll throw it to your left.
Yeah, that's me. Okay, so this is a singer that I've never really got into. However, this acoustic album by her, very, very emotional. She's a quintessential folk female singer. I think we're going to be doing her catalog coming up at some point. It's Joni Mitchell, Blue, and 1971. And it's very emotional. You can feel it. And I didn't really know the background story, but she was breaking up with Graham Nash at that time. And so she was writing from a place of heartbreak. And one of the lines that stuck out to me on one of the songs was the bed's too big, the frying pan too wide. And I've been there. I've been there.
So
I like it this way though.
yeah,
I
so
like
she,
having extra room in my frying pan, men.
so she was breaking up with Nash Bridges. I understand. Was
Yeah,
Graham
was it Don
Nash.
Johnson right here?
yeah.
Don Johnson. Yeah,
Good for you,
he wasn't
Dad.
that cool yet in
Good album.
Good for
71.
you
So
for picking that album out.
Yeah, it's
yeah, it's out of my comfort zone, Jeff. I'm trying these things, I'm
Good for you.
growing up, I'm maturing.
Well, you know what? I didn't really know much about her, but the TV show This Is Us
Yes.
brought her into it quite a bit.
Yeah, this is us. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're
Okay,
gonna make me
cool.
cry
Good
now.
to know.
yeah.
Oh no.
One of
I
the
can't
one
tell-
of the,
Crying.
one of the
Oh, I love
greatest
that show.
songwriters ever. Ever.
Okay.
It would.
Yeah.
It would Yep. No argument there.
Raise that.
Well,
Yankee-
anyways, it's getting me prepped to do the catalog show because then when I kept looking at that, I'm going, I don't know if I'm going to participate, but I probably will now. So
There you
there.
go.
There's so much good
Ray.
stuff in their catalog.
Well, don't worry. I'm not picking anything by Joni Mitchell.
First, I want
Okay.
to know, Ray, is that Yankees wallpaper or Bee Gees wallpaper
Yep,
behind you? I can't
it
tell.
is
with the-
Yankees
Yes,
wallpaper.
it's
Bee Gees.
Jeez.
I thought the pinstripe gave it away, but
Funny.
Yeah, we got all the
Jeff.
all the
Oh,
retired
Jeff.
numbers up top and everything.
Nice.
Anyways, not a Yankees podcast today. All right, so actually, we're already at the point where we're going to start doubling albums up because I got to talk about this album. It's already been brought up, but I'll tell you, I love this album. This one came out in 89, 90. Biggest hit of this band's career. I know everybody loved their harder rock and stuff, but this thing was something. Sold more than 1 million copies, and the title was a play. The title of the album was a play on the name of the band that originally did the album's big hit. This album was loaded with some incredible cover songs that played so well as acoustic jams that iPad Jeff talked about in just a little bit. And this gained a lot of high praise on it too. Jimmy Page raved about the album. It was just really fantastic and truly was the acoustic album that really started the whole MTV Unplugged phenomenon. It wasn't officially an unplugged album, but it really was the impetus to get that whole thing rolling. Talking about Sacramento, California's own Tesla.
Yeah.
The big hit was sign everywhere, a sign. Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
We know you can sing it, but we'll probably save that for another show. And of course, the album 5-man acoustical jam. I remember I was at a party. This had to be like summer of 89, summer of 90, somewhere in there. And somebody played this and I'm listening to it. You know, they're doing Lodi and they're doing We Can Work It Out and they're doing Signs and they're doing Truckin', Mother's
that's right, it
Little
was trucking.
Helper.
I was trying to remember.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just fantastic. I'm like, what is this?
there's a lot of
I'm
songs on
like,
that record too.
Yeah.
Tesla. It just totally surprised me who it was. but I played it for years on end, and I'm probably going to play it all day tomorrow now that I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was such a great album, and haven't listened to it in a while, but I'm going to make sure I do.
Yep. Get back to making acoustic records. Stop making cars. Okay. Mr. Crichton.
So wait, Tesla makes cars and they make albums. What are they? There's no Tesla anymore.
Huh? Mr. Crichton.
This one's coming out of left field.
Oh, I like
Oh,
that.
surprise, surprise.
Yeah. Back in my college days, I got turned on to this duo, taking Charlie Mancuso's History of Jazz, Rhythm and Blues and Jazz at Buff State, and they recorded many albums. This one's the one for me, and it is Brownie McGhee and Sonny Terry's Sing album. And it was released on the Folkways label in 1958, and opens with a great song, "Better Days," into the traditional song "John Henry," and "Preaching the Blues," a minstrel song called "Old Jabbo." They do a tribute to Leadbelly called "Best of Friends," from beginning to end, and it's just Brownie McGhee and Sonny Terry singing together, playing harmonica and one guitar. And
Wow.
if you have not heard this
Sounds
album,
nice.
it's historical, and you should. I will kindly suggest that you go listen to this album because it's great.
1958.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Not in my knowledge. Nope. That's
And
a
who
new one
was
on
it?
me.
Brownie McGhee and Sonny Terry.
All right.
cool.
Very nice.
We talked about flamenco and there's this album. Gonna get an honorable mention later. That was gonna be my album. And then I saw this post about somebody saying, "No, you're wrong. That is not, there's one better." And I'm like, what could possibly be better? And this guy goes, well, it's got the one guy, but he decided to go with two other people. Decided, how about a violinist and a bass player? Okay. The bass player is Stanley Clarke. The violinist is Jean-Luc Ponty.
Oh,
And the man in the middle is Al Di Meola. And that's
Yep.
The Right of Strings. Now this is even
Oh.
Chick Corea comes in. And
That's a great record.
when you're
Mm.
and I didn't believe him. I thought the guy was just, the other album I'm going to talk about, the honorable mention, is really good. But it seems that, to me, that with the bass and the violin, it becomes utterly weirdly dimensional to, it's got sad properties, it's got moody properties, whereas the other one is just guitar guys having a blast. And don't get me wrong, that's great too, but this is just more emotional, it's a better attachment. Chick Corea said, well, I'll stop by too, why not? So Chick Corea goes on there and they actually do a tribute to John Coltrane on one of the songs. So, and this, you would think, like, I'm going to say this is like 1970 something or this is 1995. So this came out.
Mhm.
I think the bass just takes it to another level, and Stanley Clarke, he's up there in the greatest bass players of all time for me. So that's my number 4, The Right of Strings.
Good choice.
Got us
And
thinking.
back to Javia.
I'm going with. I'm just gonna go right ahead and pick up with Nirvana and MTV Unplugged '94.
Right record.
And that in particular, I think, is one that is worth watching versus listening to. There is a lot of in between where Kurt and Dave will talk back and forth, like, okay, what are we doing now? Am I gonna do this alone? Do you want to join in? Like, who cares if we're taking too long? This is on TV. They're gonna edit it anyway. And like, just like things like that. They're just like so comfortable in their own selves. Just happy to play some songs. Like it's a good watch and a good listen.
They also, what I love, okay, I wasn't expecting it to be good. Nirvana's Nevermind came out. I wasn't enthralled with it. I get it. I mean, I wasn't like my number one album, and I Goo Goo Gaga. But when I heard that, and that song, Lake of Fire, right? It's the Meat Puppets. They're covering the
Yep.
Meat Puppets.
I know.
Who says I'm going to
I have
cover
it
the
on my
Meat
notes.
Puppets?
I know.
So it just
Them.
tells you where music was coming from and all that, right? And then they do David Bowie, but they don't do something that you know David Bowie for. Technically, they picked something of a little bit not obtuse, but obscure. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't. It's really not that obscure, but it's not what you would think.
I'd have to say that's probably my favorite Nirvana release. I was never a Nirvana guy. I was never really into the grunge thing heavily, but I would take Pearl Jam and Stone Temple Pilots and Alice in Chains before I take Nirvana. But that live record, man, that
It's
was
ridiculous.
really good. Like some of just the versions of those songs, I liked them that much better. Like
Yeah.
About a Girl is probably the one that really stands out for me.
Mark,
Yeah.
that album is our first album. You know how he introduces it as this is our first album. Most people don't know it. Like maybe if you had heard that album first before, like Nevermind, maybe you would have been more into it.
Well, we're talking about
Yes.
Bleach, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was a good
I
one.
agree. I was the same way with Nirvana, but that was just
Sue to you.
All right. Well, I also picked Rodrigo y Gabriela. And obviously I was introduced to them via you, Mark. So just if you're not familiar with the band, they are really talented. It's enjoyable to listen to. We got to see them live. Like we took the girls to that, right? That was
Yes,
that
we
you
did.
oh, I remember when they were at you when it
Yeah, that I think that was around 2009 because they had another release around that time, I think.
Mhm.
But anyway, really good
They
album.
did Rush. Well,
oh cool.
yeah, but
Very,
that was
very
electric and
talented.
acoustic. That was, I mean, that's an all in.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Sorry. Didn't think you okay. And by the way, I discovered Rodrigo and Gabriela in Colombia.
Oh,
Going through the record bin and they were, and I said, oh, maybe they're Colombian. And I'm like getting into it. I'm like, oh, they're not Colombian, but hey, all right.
it was the mood you were in.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Deb.
Okay. This is an unplugged album as well. And it's interesting though, 1992, and I really hadn't gotten into this performer surprisingly based on what my favorite band is, but it's Eric Clapton. And it really opened the door for me for blues specifically. I started to really realize that all these great rock and roll bands that I like have this real bluesy feel to them. And not that this was bluesy, but it was acoustic and it was more listening to the raw sound of what Clapton does. So what that did for me though was it made me interested to go see him live. And I saw him in the Crossroads tour, and interesting enough, he had this Robert Johnson like opener hobble out onto the stage and sit on a chair and play his guitar and play this blues, and I was hooked ever since. That unplugged concert though, I was pregnant with my second. I didn't know I was pregnant though. And I remember him playing Tears in Heaven, and I cried and cried and cried. And it was only a few weeks later that I found out I was pregnant with my little boy. So it's held a very special place in my life, especially with, what I've gone through. And so that's my number. What was that? Number 3.
Number 3.
Have you heard, Deb, have you heard
Okay.
Clapton's tribute album to Robert Johnson?
I think I have, but I think just once.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, that and J.J. Cale.
Yeah, and that other blues album from 90 that came out like a year or two after that. Yeah,
let's see.
so good.
Ray, you go ahead, man, though. You tell
Yes,
us your
sir.
3.
Number 3. All right. So Yeah, acoustic, folk, storytelling, lyricism. I mean, very few in history can rival this guy. I mean, if I'm going like acoustic and picking out an album, this pick is more so about the artist maybe than it is about the album, even though the album was pretty epic and many of the greats throughout music history that followed owed a lot to this guy. You know, I was never a huge fan, you know, growing up. I was too young in the 60s. In the 70s, I had no interest in him. Pretty much, I don't think really till maybe the iTunes era did I get into a number of these, you know, huge groups from the earlier days. But this guy's regarded as, you know, one of the greatest storytellers in the history of you know, music in many circles. This album itself came from early on in his career, but many of the songs have become a part of, you know, popular music lexicon, if you will. Hard rains are gonna fall. Don't think twice. It's all right. I shall be free. And of course, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The acoustic guitar and the harmonica. What can I say? He's the freewheeling Bob Dylan.
Thank you.
Excellent
Thank,
pick.
thank you for naming that, brother.
Yeah.
I knew somebody would pick that.
Yeah, I'd put it in there because I'm definitely not putting in any Joni Mitchell.
Or
How
Smashing
do you
Pumpkins.
really feel, Ray?
Or Smashing Pumpkins.
I need to do a collab. I'll send it to you.
Oh God.
The answer, my friend.
The fantastic record. I
Yep.
Sure
I,
is.
I when I made my notes about that
Yeah.
record, I was saying, you know, if only Highway 61 was on that record, it
I mean,
But-
Jeff and I were talking earlier today a little bit about it back and forth, and I would say probably for me, I would say what's the album now?
Blood on the
With Tangled
Tracks.
Up in Blue, the 75
Blood on the
album.
Tracks.
Yeah, Blood on the Tracks. It's probably my favorite Dylan album, but this one, it just seems like it's, I don't know, just so much more historic and kind of just set up the groundwork for a whole folk invasion for the rest of that decade. So,
Yeah.
but I'll stop talking. Your turn.
Oh, it's all right, man.
No, we
One of
we
these
learn
days,
from you.
we'll-
I
we'll
say
be
the
on
same
the-
thing all over time.
Yeah. He's one of those artists that I love going back to, but I am still sometimes enamored by the new stuff. That he still has a story to tell, and he'll go back. That Rough and Rowdy Ways record.
That was good.
He's got that tilted floor 50s thing going on, and you know, like you're in some club in the Upper West Side of like oh
New York.
yeah, well, yeah, sort of like up that way. And then all of a sudden there's a song that he puts on the record that they can't fit on the album because it's too long. So they have to give it a separate single. It's with the album. And it's like another Highway 61, but it's all about the death of Kennedy.
Yeah.
You know? And ridiculously good. And
That was a great record.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Jeff Crichton.
So my number 3, I was, tossing the ball in the air. When you pick a Simon and Garfunkel record, which one do you pick?
Yeah, which one?
Do you go Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme? You go like, okay, that's really acoustic. There's a lot of great songs. And then you go after that and you go, so Bookends has, a lot of great songs. Yeah, and then the ball keeps juggling. And you could go to their last record, Bridge Over Troubled Water, and you go, okay, where's it going to land?
So
And it landed on the bridge.
Oh, you had Bridge. Okay.
And landed on the bridge. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their last album, when they broke up, it wasn't a happy ending. And even though they got back together 3 times to do stuff, just wasn't a nice ending. But the classic, it had hit after hit after hit. The title track, the album won Grammy for the album of the year. The Boxer's on there, Cecilia's on there. El Condor Pasa's on there.
Baby Driver.
Yeah, Baby Driver. They,
Keep
you
the
know, they do a
customer
cover of Bye
satisfied.
Bye. They do a cover of Bye Bye Love. You know, it's
So
a
good.
it's a perfect
So
record.
good.
It
So
is a perfect
that's
record.
my number 3.
That's a perfect record.
Hard
No
not to
question.
choose that one. Good call.
Maybe
Thanks.
the best perfect vocal record of all time. It's harmonic.
Oh yeah, Artie's vocal on the title.
Yeah.
track
How do you?
is
Yeah.
amazing.
I'm wondering if
Speaking of which, Art Garfunkel did an album with his son last year.
really.
Really?
Yeah, called Garfunkel and Son.
Okay.
And
Oh, wow.
it's
Very unique.
it's enjoyable. I mean, he's
I
not
gotta look
breaking
and
any
see.
ground, but his
That's really
son's got like the high tenor voice like
Yeah.
Artie used to have, and
Wow.
it's an enjoyable record.
Think of the money that they could produce if Simon and Garfunkel actually did a tour together today.
You know, Jeff's been around when he's calling him Artie.
Yes.
Yes.
Nope, I didn't. Okay. Oh, I spelled it wrong. I gotta go look and see if I did listen to that or not. Just it doesn't strike me. I don't know why. All right. Oh, okay. So I'm gonna go to Marrakesh because you're not gonna get to hear Led Zeppelin do acoustic, and Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, and this whole idea of taking basically Kashmir and finding a place for it in MTV's Unplugged, technically, is just mind blowing. It's complete absorption. It's totally remarkable. I saw them live at the what is it? The Odd. That's what it used to be called, right?
Yep.
Was he
It
on?
was.
And there were instruments being played that were not of common name and place. I think a French accordion guy came out or something. I don't remember. There was some, and then the Buffalo Philharmonic. So it's a remarkable record, and it took that area of music and it brought it to the forefront of rock. And that's completely influenced a lot that goes on today and after that. And that was that it's for those two guys to get together and do that and make that happen. That's probably one of the best moments in rock history because they neither of them needed to do it, and they understood the power of it all and what they could do. It was not the same. They didn't do something that was the same. They couldn't.
Correct.
You think it's 25 years? That was 25 years after their first record, right? And then the whole
Yeah.
thing with Bonham and Plant's son and the whole breakup, and people waited and waited. Are we going to get a Zeppelin? And then that came out. And that was, for so many fans, was just like, oh my God, finally, Page and Plant are back together. And that was pretty cool. Thank You was my favorite one on that album. That was
yeah.
really good.
Me
Oh.
too.
So good.
My number 3. So you can imagine what 2 and 1 must be. Back to Jeff Young.
I'm gonna go. I hate double dipping, but I guess if someone's like Jeff is gonna come out of left field, I'll go ahead and hit a foul. I'm gonna go with an EP, which normally I wouldn't pick an EP, but since this EP has 7 songs, which is equal to most LPs now, I'm gonna go with Jar of Flies.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 7 songs, all great. I mean, you've heard at least half of them on the radio, probably. And I mean, what can you say? It's just excellent.
Definitely more radio friendly, that's for sure.
That's great, man. To pull it out, you got no excuses but to choose that one.
Yeah. But yeah, you got like I Stay Away, No Excuses, Don't Follow, Nutshell. I mean,
Awesome. Favorite album by them.
It's I still got the one-legged or the 3-legged dog. That one, I don't know. I like it dark. Sue.
So I wanted to ask first though, Susan Tedeschi, did she do a cover of Don't Think Twice then by Bob Dylan?
Yes.
She did. Okay. All right.
It's
Yeah,
on
it sounded really familiar.
it's on
What a voice.
the Texas thing, right? Isn't
Yeah,
it?
I think so, yeah. Okay. I didn't even realize it was him. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm touching.
He wrote 335,000 songs, so it's some, they're definitely one of them.
Yeah, it's a good song. I didn't know that was him. Anyway. All right. Well, my next one has already been taken, but Eric Clapton's.
Ah,
I mean, Deb spoke about it very eloquently and lovely.
Yeah, that's how I am.
And you know,
He's the best.
what else can you say?
Mhm.
And you know, Tears from Heaven is just such a beautiful, I mean, obviously sad song, but he expressed his grief and his feelings and the loss and in such a beautiful way.
Yeah.
Timeless. And Eric
Mhm.
Clapton, he just always makes me think of my nephew Dominic, who, well, my brother-in-law Dan, I think he's seen Eric Clapton probably like a gazillion times everywhere. But Dominic, I still picture him. He was just like a little baby, and he loved Eric Clapton, and he would sit in front of the TV and pretend to be him, and he put like a little dishcloth on his head for hair.
God, I can't
Right.
picture Dominic doing it. That's hilarious.
So anyway, that's my number 2. I don't have anything else to add. But
there's also
I
a picture with
agree.
me in leather pants standing next to him while he's singing.
leather.
Leather.
Yeah, well, thanks. Embarrass me further. Great.
Actually, that album I was talking about is From the Cradle.
Yes,
That's the
I was
blues
gonna.
album that
Yeah.
Clapton put out. Oh,
yes.
fantastic.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, my number 2, I'm piggybacking off of too. Her first one was Robert Johnson. Yeah, I picked the same one. He only recorded 29 songs, I think, in his
Yep.
lifetime, you know.
only and he between 36 and 37, I think that was it.
Yeah, that was it.
So
Yeah.
And because he died at the age of 27, you know, he sold his
Crazy.
soul to the devil and drank some poisoned whiskey in a honky tonk bar. So for that, we probably missed out on a lot of really great stuff with him only being on earth until he was 27. But like I said, Clapton kind of opened my eyes to the whole being more appreciative of acoustics, and I started listening to blues more. And it's just every time I put it on, it doesn't even matter how old it was, how it's got that
yeah.
gut soul feel, and you can almost feel like you're in a bar watching him play, and can imagine the smells of the gross sticky floor. And
Yeah.
so that's my number 2.
Okay. Ray?
All right, number 2. Well, I touched on this one when we did the last show a couple weeks ago for the albums from '95,
Okay.
and the Unplugged fever was so well underway, and
Big time.
this band was well into their 4th decade of putting out music. I'm gonna have to say I'm a bit biased, as it is my all-time favorite band, but there was just something about this record that was just so special, such fresh takes on songs that were released so long ago, hits and rarities, just all the fluff was taken out, and old songs became new. It was something else. You'd have to say it was stripped down. Dead Flowers, Sweet Virginia, Street Fighting Man, Spider and the Fly, Let It Bleed, Angie, and they actually did an incredible version of Like a Rolling Stone. It was a great tribute to the freewheeling Bob Dylan for sure. And I simply love Stripped by the Rolling Stones. Can't get enough of it.
Yeah. Great
Nice.
record. Jeff Crichton.
Well, number two is a repeat from one of our fellow panelists, and it's my favorite album from one of my favorite artists of all time. Released, that was my 4th favorite album from 1971. Okay, 4th.
That's a lot of great albums in 71.
Yeah,
Oh, that was a great year.
sure was. So it's my 4th favorite. It was released June 21st, 1971. One of the best songwriters ever. Maybe after Dylan. For me, Joni might be the best songwriter after Bob. So, Deb set it up well, but the song "My Old Man," the song about Graham Nash, Carrie, California's on that. "A Case of You," another song written for Nash, and the song so many have recorded is a Christmas song, "River." So it's got great song after great song after great song, and so that's my number 2.
Okay.
I love that, Jeff.
I figured. All right, so my number 2. I know that the unplugged craze is going on, and he did that. He's done acoustic albums. He can play an entire acoustic set live for 2.5 hours if he wanted to. He could do it on a guitar. He could do it on a piano. He can do it. And this is Harvest Moon by Neil Young.
I'll
I
pick that one.
I am
Yep.
completely enthralled with that record. It's whimsical yet, evocative. He's even when it's whimsical, he's talking about his old dog. He's got, it's an achievement in the catalog of a man that has no limitations of style of guitar, and
Yep.
and what he can surround himself with, and that was always one of those that I just every time it's on, Harvest is great. You can put Harvest on there, but I think Harvest kind of is it timeless? I guess it is, but for me that Harvest Moon was more in my wheelhouse at the time. But I like it more than Harvest, and I like it more than Unplugged.
Harvest is more of an acoustic record than Harvest Moon,
Yeah,
because Harvest has 3 electric songs on it.
It's a
Yeah,
lot of harvest
right.
going on there.
yeah.
And then one that almost made the cut for me was
I was
one of the
trying.
forgotten records that nobody talks about as far as an acoustic masterpiece is "Comes a
Another
Time."
harvest.
Yes, comes a time. Yeah,
"Comes a Time's a great record.
It comes a time for a harvest.
yes.
to the
There comes time for
harvest.
harvest,
It's fall.
and then maybe there'll be a sickle harvest, and
That's what
maybe
I
that'll be
was-
a Neil Young and
That's what
Crazy
I
Horse
meant.
record.
Sick.
But Young, give us your number.
Jeez.
1.
Poor woman.
So I'm going with
Acoustic Daryl Hannah. No.
Who's going with
1997,
harvest?
Days of the New,
Oh, yes.
also known as the Yellow or the Orange album.
Huh.
So Travis Meeks is the power behind it. He named Ed Can as an inspiration while working on it. The songs most notable from this are Touch, Peel, and Stand, the Downtown, and Shelf in the Room. I mean, Days of the New had like basically three albums, and they're all good. This is probably stands out a little more than the others, just mostly because it's the debut. And if you look at like the Wikipedia page, it says all the band members that were on those three albums. There's almost 30 band members, and Meeks had attributed his trouble with relationships with the fact that he suffers from Asperger's, but it really spilled over into his personal life because he had like 2 daughters with 2 different women. One daughter was put up for adoption. He tried to make a comeback, but he was arrested for drugs, and he was arrested for burglary. And he's just had just kind of a mess life like since his success initially. And he tried to do a comeback with another album, and that fell through because of all those arrests. And I don't know what's going on with him now, but it's just kind of sad. But that first album is excellent.
Susan saw him open for Metallica.
Yeah, he was upset that he was opening for Metallica, and I forget who else was on that bill. Maybe you remember. Yeah, no, I don't know if that. Yeah, I guess so. But he was complaining to the record company that he should have been more like on a tour with like Dave Matthews.
Yeah, well, when that album came out, it was shocking because acoustic alternative, and heavy, and how do you? And I was enamored. I thought he was the shit, but he apparently was more.
I think the reason they put him on the Metallica tour is because they considered it similar to Alice in Chains. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was a good show. It worked.
I'm sure it was great. Yeah, I wish I'd seen it.
On that note, over to the woman who saw it, Sue.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big letdown here, but so my pick was gonna be Nirvana, the Unplugged, which has been talked about to death. And then after that was brought up, I thought, oh well, my backup was going to be Harvest Moon, but that's been brought up and talked about and harvested to death. So so they're both good albums. Nirvana, I think I've mentioned before. Yes, I love the Foos and all that. Was not a huge Nirvana fan, but definitely that one caught my eye and my ear, and just even separate from Nirvana. And I think Dave talked about it in his book too. I can't remember the details, but he had a lot of interesting stories about the progression of the band, and that was definitely in there too. But so yeah, so
It
I,
showed
I'll
them-
I'll
it
st-
showed
I'll
us
stick
all
with
they were
Nirvana.
musicians. They were great musicians, technically. You
Mhm.
can't do unplugged if you can't play.
Yeah.
And his guitar went for like $6 million in auction that
Wow.
they used on that show. Yeah, that's crazy, huh?
Wow.
Mm.
All right,
didn't buy
Dan. What's number one?
Okay, well, I don't know if you guys have a half an hour or so because I'm just so excited about this. But it's already been mentioned. I have to go back a little bit in my history of why this was so exciting for me. I had tickets to go see this band in 1980. It was my first year of college, and the concert didn't happen, and then no other concerts happened after that.
Son of a-
So I and in 1994, when they released No Quarter, Page and Plant, I just was over the moon. There's not a song on this album I don't love. I actually had the experience of going to Memphis and seeing them do this album. It was unbelievable. I had floor tickets and I'm only 5'1", so that wasn't a real great idea. But I stood on a chair, a folding chair for the entire concert with this little kid next to me who was only about 9 or 10, and he was busting out of himself. He was so excited that he was there. I didn't know if I was more excited to see Page and Plant or to see this kid loving Page and Plant at the age of 10 years old, right? So there's, like I said, there's not a song on that album that I don't love, that I don't go back. I listen to this album all the time. And even in spite of Mark giving me all this homework, every week I still have time to listen to my Robert Plant sing to me. Thank you.
Nice. Very nice.
Good job, Deb.
So that's my number one.
Great.
All right, all right. Yeah, I got another repeat here too. So many great ones that we've talked about today. This one, he started out as the artist that was signed to the Emerging Apple Records label, of course, which was started by the Beatles. This folk rock classic of an album is really what shot this artist to, fame and fortune. He had some releases prior to it, but this is the one that put him, over the moon in that, unbelievable year of 1971. The personal stories in the lyrics of the tracks on this album, just were huge, were timeless, and were filled with such pain. Songs, like Country Road, that points to the struggles that he was going through. Fire and Rain speaks to so much, and the title track points towards just the desperation of the artist. He was, as Jeff mentioned earlier, we were able to see him again in concert last summer, and this is just a perfect album. It really is. I mean, there's a lot of folks might want to be more want to listen to like a greatest hits or a live package, but for an album from start to finish, this is just one of the most perfect albums of all time, and I'm talking about Sweet Baby James himself, James Taylor.
Okay.
He's just one of those guys that I forget about, but I had so many of his albums that I just played over and over and over again. And it just kind of escaped my my thought process of, putting him into any of these shows that we're doing.
Yeah.
And, I'm I'm to my chagrin.
To your chagrin.
To my chagrin. So
Well, he's put out so many records. Could be a
Yeah.
catalog show.
It
oh
would-
God.
yes, it
We
would
better
be-
get started.
Yeah.
It's
2026.
it'll be
Analog
up there
week.
in its time consumption.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was just so
Do
good.
you think there's
good.
an alternative universe where he does metal?
No.
James Taylor.
Nah.
Now that would be
No,
fun.
Very
James
interesting.
Taylor rocks that.
Yeah, Rob Zombie's
He's
doing
just so-
country.
he's just so,
and
like,
low-key
chill.
folk.
He calls it quits before anything.
Jeff, you're number one.
well, my number 5 was Ray's number 1.
Yes.
So
So is it
no,
okay?
no. My number 1, I was teetering between like now. Ray picked the Freewheelin',
Okay.
Bob Dylan, and that was historic. That record's great. Did everybody see the Dylan movie?
Not
Not
yet.
Yeah,
Mm.
Oh my gosh, it's fantastic. Really,
Is it?
I heard good
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
yeah. It was.
How
and
can I watch that, Jeff? What streaming device is it on?
It's not on a streaming
It's
device.
not
You
yet.
have to go to
Not
the
yet.
actual theater.
Oh
So-
wow.
Yeah,
Is it a
So-
popcorn film?
it covers his years 61 to 65. So that means they have to make sequels because there's 60 more years to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll wait for
So
that.
anyway, so Ray picked the Freewheelin'. I picked the album that celebrated its 50th anniversary on Monday, on the 20th. Blood on the Tracks. And I was trying to decide between this one and the Freewheelin'. Like I said, either would be worthy. I chose this one because I played it more.
Okay.
And for me, this is the best album of 1975. And every song is great. Every song, from Tangled Up in Blue to the closing Buckets of Rain. Shelter from the Storm is a classic. Idiot Wind, Rosemary and the Jack of Hearts. It's such a great record and deserving of my numero uno.
Numero uno. Good. That's great. There's no reason for Bob Dylan not to be in this discussion at least once or twice or 3 times. But he's not in mine. Although I love him and I didn't appreciate him until later. I had to go back. So my number 1, this is the hardest hitting, lesson learning, yet ear pleasing album of all time, in my opinion. The struggle is real, but so is the delivery, the poise, the intelligence, the storytelling, the voice inflection, and it's done in its simplicity. And one of the songs is even done a cappella. And it's marksmanship from a female at her best. And that's Tracy Chapman in her debut album.
I knew you were going to go there.
Yes.
And
Yes,
I'm
yes,
still in awe of it every time I listen to it. Disturbing in a lot of places. And the Genuine article, and whoever, I don't remember who produced it, but whoever, it's probably Rick Rubin.
No.
Just Genuine article of an album, and I will never forget it. And I'm sure there are tons of people in that era that are not going to either.
I would have bet money you picked that album.
Yeah, Fast Car,
Yeah.
the country version. That guy can eat shit. He's terrible.
I love that
Terrible.
you said that.
Bloody terrible.
I like it.
How do you take that? Oh, come on. Come on.
David Kirschenbaum.
Okay.
I saw Tracy Chapman at Darien Lake. She
Oh.
opened for Sting.
Oh, well, oh yeah, Amnesty.
That was-
Amnesty.
It's a pretty good bill.
That's a great bill.
Yeah, it was a great concert.
Although there was no bill involved. So, I don't know. All right. So honorable mentions. Give me a couple if you got them. I'll start at the top with Jeff Crichton because he normally honorable mentions us quite some.
Yeah.
Okay. What did I tell you earlier?
Like,
Just give us your top 20.
Okay, I'll give you my.
Real quick.
Too funny. Neil Young, Comes a Time.
okay.
American Recordings by Johnny Cash, which I mentioned before.
Rick Rubin.
Yeah. And then one that bluegrass, really great record called "Out of the Woodwork" by the Rice Brothers and Chris Hillman and Herb Peterson. It's called "Out of the Woodwork," and it's by Rice, Hillman, and Peterson, and it's such an enjoyable record. And so there's three, but you know what almost made it? Could have been, would have been on. It's on the cutting room floor. Leo Kottke, 6 and 12 string guitar.
Oh yes, I
And-
listened to that yesterday. Yeah,
And if I was to choose a live record, if it would be Friday Night in San Francisco by Al Di Meola, John McLaughlin, and Paco de Lucia, that would be my live record.
and that is the album I'm talking about. That I said this album by Stanley Clarke, Al Di Meola, and John
Ah.
Conte is better than that record.
Okay.
And
I kind of thought
love
that's
that
what you're
record. I
referencing
love
to.
that record, and I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this throws it differently. They're great. There's a companion. You do a double night, man. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Good
Yep.
stuff. Excellent. Ray, what you got on the honorable mensch?
I think I'm gonna end up going with a number of those ones that were mentioned. It was tough not to pull a number of those MTV Unplugged out there, especially the Eric Clapton. I really like that one a lot. The Nirvana one was really good. Another one that didn't get mentioned and all that I thought was great was Rod Stewart's Unplugged and Seated, which was
Yeah,
great
great.
because Ronnie Wood ended up coming back and playing with him on that. And
Mhm.
some of the versions of it, because a good amount of his library, the Maggie Mays and a lot of that stuff just got so overplayed and beaten down. He just added this whole new feel to some of these songs. I mean, Maggie May itself was just the whole build up to it was just really incredible, which I really really like. Another one too, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago when we did the other show when I talked about Natalie Merchant, but 10,000 Maniacs and their Unplugged album was really fantastic too.
Did that
And
sell
the other
better
one
than the
that
album, right?
the
That they had. I'm pretty sure.
the other one that I picked out too, I was looking over some things. I'm not so deep into some of these things that you and Jeffrey are pulling out. I'm gonna end up having to really dig into some of those, which I'm so deep into music sometimes. I love hearing some stuff that I don't know and surprised
Great,
that I
isn't it?
don't.
I love it.
But one of my favorite bands of the last 30 years are the Black Crowes, and they released this Crowology in 2010, and it's just, I mean, Chris Robinson,
Yeah.
he just got such a gospel-like voice, and I truly feel he's one of the great male rock singers of all time. Doesn't get maybe enough credit, but you see this guy live and you just listen to what he does. It's so good. And
Cool.
How is it true?
Sue.
Everything I would have picked has been mentioned.
Me too.
All right.
I will
Okay,
tell you
honorable
that.
mention. No quarter.
Well, I thought it was interesting when I was looking up all these, trying to find albums I might forgot or thought of it.
Mhm.
Like you just Google like what are like some good lists. Why are people putting Guns N' Roses "Lies" on their acoustic album
I
list when it's
saw that.
electric
yeah, I
guitars?
saw that list.
There's
So
been a lot of
retarded.
mistakes. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
but then
There's patience, right?
one MTV plug that was done that I don't think the album was ever released after was Aerosmith, and it's actually
Really?
pretty good.
There's
Yeah,
a couple
it
that
is.
were never released.
Hmm.
REM's was never released.
No.
Okay, so yes, I agree with Mr. Crichton on the McLaughlin, Demiola. The Days of the New, which was already mentioned by Jeff Young, that was on my list. I Bridge Over Troubled Water, yes, but a live show. Joe Bonamassa live from the Opera House in Vienna.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I never didn't have the album. I only saw the last part of the performance. Okay, so obviously I saw the coup de grace, like when you see a firework display and it's good and all of a sudden it goes crazy, right?
Yeah.
Well, at the end of that show is absolute acoustic ridiculum. How he's playing that acoustic guitar,
Ridiculum.
and I'm surprised that the strings didn't break, the guitar didn't fall apart, and it was just, I mean, I wish I would have been in the Vienna house that night, but that I went back and that whole album it has a pace and a study of everything. And I know there are people out there that like he's a copycat, he's not an original, blah blah blah. I don't give a shit. He's a really good
I know.
player bar none, and he knows how to make things his own, and he's got a decent voice to sing in that. It's
Yeah.
you know, and so hold on.
Yeah.
All right.
I saw him when he was 13 years old in Utica.
Wow.
Did you really?
I
That's
did.
cool.
Saw him in a club.
That's really cool.
I had a radio guy tell me, he said, like, oh, after dinner, we're going to see this 13-year-old kid. And I said, why? And he said, I'm not going to tell you why. You're just going to come and your jaw's going to drop. And he was right.
I love
And
those
you've never
kind of shows.
questioned that friend again.
No, and I actually have a board tape from that.
Really?
I do.
Oh, cool.
That's neat.
What year?
Oh boy,
I'm putting you on the
Nice.
spot. I don't mean to.
early 90s,
Early
maybe.
90s? Okay. All right. All right. So I said I wasn't going to go there, but I decided I'm going to go there.
Oh
This is for
no.
all you people this is beyond your radio. And what I'm about to mention is just beyond your radio. This was never going to get played on radio. There's not a single track. This is Comus, Comus, and the name of the album is First Utterance, 1971. This is psychedelic folk, okay? And this is you're mind blown on all the things that are going on.
Bright the sunlight, summer day, Comus wakes, he starts to play, 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 play. Virgin fair, smile so sweet, Comus' heart begins to beat, 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 beat.
In this progressive folk environment. And what happens is you're entranced, and then there's a vocal that happens, and you're either going to be in or you're going to be out.
Oh.
And it's
What do you
rough.
think for me, Mark?
It might be an out, but the things that are going on in this record are obliterating. This is 1971. Okay. I don't even know how a record label even picked this up and made it. It's obviously it's in the progressive world. So, I mean, I was like, wait a minute, is that Peter Gabriel? Right. And then Peter Gabriel's got a sidekick from another foreign country or something. I'm assuming Asian, but I didn't look it up or anything, but the vocal is sometimes it's okay. And then it reaches and it's supposed to grind apparently, but it is a wicked record. And I don't even the accomplishment of it. So if you want to look it up, it's Comus is the name of the band, and it's First Utterance. And I think it was the last utterance.
They were one and done.
First and last.
I don't
Yeah,
know if
just-
they're one and done. I just after that I needed a spritzer and and a good ear cleaning. But
After
it's
that,
something
they went
different.
into a comus and were never heard again.
Yes, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Actually, I just found it on Apple Music, so I'll give it a listen.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's not short by any means. It's very, very long.
Oh boy.
So prepare
Well, it's
thyself.
progressive,
Prepare
but you never
thyself.
think of progressive.
Yeah,
doing
1 hour,
acoustic.
11 minutes.
No.
Yeah,
At
yeah.
all.
And I'm telling you, people, that's why I do this show. I'm into it, and that's why I'm still here in the basement. And Sue went over with that.
Well, I'm just happy that you wear earphones sometimes,
Yeah.
so I don't have to hear.
Could you imagine if I would have worn earphones with Shotgun Sawyer? Then no one would have known. No one would have.
Oh, right.
That's right.
Right.
So I want to thank the panelists for doing this tonight. These are always fun to do, unless it's country. What were your favorite 5 albums in this acoustic arena? There are plenty more that we didn't. We could do another show on this. I'm sure of it. We'll be back again to do this again, and I'm not going to tell you what it is yet because I might change my mind. And after I talk to the panelists, but we're on the web at beyondyourradio.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, of course. I got articles, videos, podcasts coming soon. It's all about albums, bands, artists. Yeah, that's right, Comus. You wouldn't hear Comus on any other program.
No.
You're
We're also on MySpace and AOL.
yes.
AOL.
Thanks for watching.
Dial up.
Happy listening.